Hi, everyone. My name is Sandi Griffin. I'm an SEO account manager at Seer Interactive, and I'm here to hopefully solve one of your problems, specifically the problem of clients not having the resources to implement your SEO recommendations, specifically your content recommendations. So I'm sure you've experienced this before. It's a really tough thing to overcome. Your client probably hired you because they don't have a lot of time on their hands as it is. So getting them to implement content on their site that will help improve their site, but requires their resources to get it up there, that's a tough ask. And so I'm going to talk you through one way that I'm addressing that with some of my clients using ChatGPT. Now, before I get into how we use ChatGPT to solve this problem, want to first address a couple caveats. So the probably most obvious thing here is that ChatGPT is going to give you a broad base of knowledge. It's going to give you the average understanding of the topic at hand. It's not going to be as expert level as if a true SME at your client's company wrote it, right? It's not going to be the most expert level, the best expertise out there. And this, is a potential problem. As Will wrote about recently in his Sea of Sameness problem in content marketing and SEO blog post, we're seeing that, it's a real problem that content out in the world is repetitive over and over, that there's not a lot of new things people are saying when they're creating SEO driven content. And so Will ran a test and found that when he plugged in his true expertise into a page and ignored, what everyone else was doing, he actually saw the page improve. So very important, especially in the age of AI written content, for expertise to go into the content that we create. So note that what I'm creating here is a first draft that should be reviewed and heavily edited by SMEs as much as possible for them to include their own expertise. Nonetheless, it's a starting point. Two other caveats I want to make. One is that some clients do not allow their data to be input into AI tools, and that's okay. This approach that I'm going to show you uses public data. It shouldn't violate your client's AI policies. Nonetheless, I would encourage you to talk to your client before doing this, just to make sure that they are satisfied with it. One thing you can do is completely exclude the client's name and all URLs in the prompts that you create, and I'll show you the areas where you can do that. And then last, this is a great strategy for clients who have their internal GPT tools or internal AI tools. If they, I originally developed this for one of my clients in which they created an internal GPT. And I developed these prompts testing within ChatGPT 4, but they were able to apply it within their internal GPT and get, a higher level of expert level content because their internal resources were being plugged in. Those are my caveats. Now I'm going to jump in to what I actually did and how I converted this, resources into something more usable for clients. So first, I'll show you this content outline. I am using it as a simulation for Realtor.com, which is not a client of ours, but assuming that they were, Seer would have created a content outline. Now in here, we include everything that they need to be able to write an SEO-driven content. We include our keyword research, competitive examples, metadata optimizations, internal links, page structure, and specific instructions for what each section should look like on the page, as well as any formatting or meta tagging, anything like that. Now, this is wonderful for writers, but it also gives you a leg up to be able to jump into your prompts and include, copy paste a lot of this information into prompt form. So here we are in my AI prompt content outline version of this page. Now, here I will say it's important to still include metadata and internal links when delivering to clients, because the draft that you're going to be getting from ChatGPT or another tool is not going to, include those. So having these on the page to make sure that they're not missed as opportunities is important. But that's not important here. Let's jump into the fun part, AI prompts. So I found with working with ChatGPT in particular, that it's best to include prompts in more bite-sized pieces rather than including the entirety of all the instructions that I want ChatGPT to follow, including the prompts into separate pieces and making sure it understands before moving forward has really worked well for me. So this first prompt is an overview. Here I say, I'm an expert in real estate. I'm not, but assuming I was, I'm an expert in real estate. I'm creating a blog post for a company called Client, a network of real estate agents in the United States that primarily focuses on residential buying, selling, and renting. I'm going to give you some information about the goal, audience, guidelines, keywords, sources, and I'm going to provide separate prompts for instructions. And this is important. I don't want the entire blog post yet. I want ChatGPT to give me those. I'm going to provide separate instructions for each section, and I want ChatGPT to give me those instructions later. So when I put that in, ChatGPT said, got it. All good. Prompt number 2. Now these are instructions for the entire page. As you saw in the content outline, we have these specific recommendations for different sections, but there's some things that apply to the entire page, such as keywords, such as word count for the entire page, such as sources and audience and things like that. So that is where I included this. This outline has worked really well for me, telling it what the goal is and telling it to follow all these guidelines below, including audience, guidelines. So this is mostly formatting, how many words it is, what kind of format I want to see, what kind of tone I want. This is particularly important as tone can vary quite wildly depending on I don't know how ChatGPT is feeling in a particular day. So this is the only place where you will include specific URLs from your client. Ideally, you're able to do that. You should be able to do that because it is public data. But if your client is feeling a little bit nervous about that, you can instead use descriptive language or include some writing samples via text to let ChatGPT know what tone you're going for. Next, you'll include the sources. So these are specifically other URLs that are ranking well in the SERPs. I always have to tell ChatGPT that it can access URLs online. At least it can in ChatGPT 4. Sometimes it says that it can't, but it can. So you need to tell it to. Also, I'm okay with it using other highly authoritative sources, but I did want to outline for it what those types of authoritative sources are, so it's not pulling from sources that I wouldn't trust. I then include all of the keywords and the outline for the page. And then my first prompt, or my third prompt, is the first one that I should expect some written text from. So we're following along here. I dumped this first prompt in. It said, great, thumbs up. I dumped the second prompt in. It said, great, thumbs up. This is when I'm starting to get writing out of it. So this next prompt includes the header it tells ChatGPT to use all of the criteria stated earlier as a reminder so that it doesn't forget that. And that references these guidelines here. It includes specific recommendations for that section, what competitors it should use as inspiration, and what keywords to include. Now, I do say that it should use the keywords in the earlier prompt, but particularly for this section, I want it to use this keyword. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that, again, if there are any recommendations throughout that are, internal links or something like that, that would need to be applied at the end. So just make a mental note for yourself. For example, here, I ask it to write a bulleted list. Really, if you look at the outline, those should be H3s, not a bulleted list. But I felt like it was easier to explain to ChatGPT, make a bulleted list, and then I can myself convert it. Play around with it as you'd like. And then the last thing here is that, a section that's specifically about the client. Obviously, ChatGPT is not going to do a very good job at knowing exactly what to write here if it doesn't have access to the client's domain. Obviously, because this is a fake example, I didn't use a specific client, but you're able to provide the client's website and ask it to write it, or you can lean on SMEs to confirm what the CTA should be and how the client's work relates to the topic. So once you have everything in here, as you can see, I asked it to write each section, and then finally I asked it to pull it together into one blog post where it just pulled everything prior and has this beautiful version for us. The bolded items, I forgot to point this out earlier, are the keywords that it used. The reason I like that is because then I can see at a glance, did it use the keywords that I suggested, and does it feel like keyword stuffing? If so, I might want to remove it. Now, this is important, this last bit. What you'll then do is you'll go back to the original content outline and you will dump in ChatGPT's writing. And from there, you'll want to double check to make sure that your recommendations were included and make any edits as necessary. For example, I don't like big blocks of text. This is not that big of a block of text, but ChatGPT included all this text. I wanted to break it up. I also checked out the search terms, the keywords that it included here. I included some URLs to internal links, pulling from the recommendations in these sections. And then in addition, I also included notes for the SMEs. So just a reminder to them, hey, this is a starting point of generally accepted practice. We want you to give your expert opinion on this topic, including, excluding, or adding any requirements to this section. One thing I also did when I took a look at this was I looked at this list that we had recommended based on what we were seeing competitors do and compared it against this, and it looked pretty good to me. So at a first glance, this looks like helpful information that at least other competitors are doing. But again, we want to break out of that sea of sameness mold, so encouraging SMEs to input their expertise is important. Here I removed a keyword because it felt a little bit stuffy, which is something you'll want to look out for. And then again, this last section, it drafted something based on what I told it about the client, but of course it doesn't know the ins and outs of the products and services that the client offers. So that is everything. Hope you find something to be able to pull from this in your own client work. Again, there's lots of wonderful uses of ChatGPT and other AI tools, and I'd love to hear more from you on how you're using it with your clients. Thanks so much.